Hello, everyone, and welcome. I'm Scott Billing, the Head of Operations at Electric House. And firstly, I just wanted to say thank you to everyone for attending our webinar, Just Shoot Me. For those of you who are not familiar with Electric House, we're a social media publishing group. We create, publish, and distribute video content through our social communities. Electric House owns and operates the On the Tools and On a Budget communities and the groups within them. And we also have our Ministry of channels focusing on topics such as science, history, and trivia. These are aimed at educating a younger demographic than On the Tools or On a Budget, and began life as a joint commission between ourselves and TikTok. As a bit of background to our video production history that you're going to hear more about today, in 2017, as On the Tools, we began employing a full-time video production team to create content for ourselves and our clients. And up until this point, much of the content going out to the On the Tools community was being submitted by the community itself through content filmed on their phones, which many of you will have seen. We didn't have any cameras, we didn't have any lights, we didn't have any audio equipment of our own. But what we did have was a really clear idea of who our audience was and what they wanted. So we began building the processes, acquiring the equipment, and expanding the team to the point where we now have more than 40 full-time video production specialists creating video content every single day of the week. And the aim of today's webinar is to provide insight for anyone who wants to create video content for themselves or their brand, whether you're yet to start, whether you're looking for ways to improve, or whether you have reached a point where you need to outsource your video production. We're here to help. You're also very welcome, even if you're just interested in what we do and how we do it. On the panel today, we have George Smith, Matt Butler, and Joe Taylor, all of whom work for Electric House, and they'll be talking you through the social, technical, and design elements you should be thinking about when creating video content. The webinar is due to last 1 hour, so it'll finish at 10:30. And if you do have any questions, please feel free to get these in throughout the presentation or when we go to the panel a little bit later on. You can do this by clicking the Q&A button at the bottom of the screen. So let's get started with our first member of the panel. I'd like to welcome George. George is our head of On a Budget, and I think the technical term is social media whiz kid. George, that shows my age, doesn't it? That makes me sound like 100 saying that. He's going to talk to you about the different types of content on social media and why we create them. So take it away, George.
Thank you, Scott, and I appreciate the whiz kid title. I'll take that with aplomb, which I think is a word. If not, just discard it. Okay, hello everybody. My name is George. As you can see there, this is me looking. I carried a few extra pounds, I think. Anyway, it was a good time. Head of social for On a Budget at Electric House. My role is to manage the overall social community, strategize on building the network, coming up with new content avenues and opportunities. But ultimately, it's about listening to the audience to determine what they want. So I'm going to be talking through video content on Facebook, some key content types and how best to utilize them. We'll be sticking to published page content today, as lives and targeted paid content obviously warrant a talk in themselves. So let's look at the stats. I'm going to begin with what may be seen as the positives. So first up, views. Sources quote there is between 4 and 8 billion views on Facebook every day, which equates to about 100 million hours of content. So that's roughly 11,500 years of content is watched every day, which I believe is scientifically known as a shitload. Secondly, Hootsuite reports that our average engagement rate for video content on Facebook is 0.26%. So this is in comparison to around 0.18% of content overall. So video still sits as one of the most engaging types of content on the platform. But what could be seen as negatives, some 65% of Facebook video views come solely from mobile and 85% of views are with the sound off. Meanwhile, the average video watch time is just 10 seconds. But don't take these as negatives, more as a reason to be aware of the opportunity available with Facebook video, optimize for the platform and cut through the noise to stop users from scrolling on to the next post, to make them turn the sound on and to watch your content. So I'm going to be running through 4 content types that we use within the business, but that are also key pillars of Facebook video content that you'll see across all pages and publishers. So first up, UGC. or user-generated content. Whether you've heard the term or not, you will be aware of it. Staple of viral videos, and likely what you've just been forwarded on WhatsApp by your mum. My mum has been sending me more stuff through lockdown. I've had to block her. I don't talk to her, you know? So that's the way we're at. If you go onto Facebook Watch now, which is Facebook's in-app YouTube-style platform, if you're not familiar with it, this is where you can watch purpose-made series, but also the most viewed content on Facebook at any given time. The likelihood is the majority of that content is UGC. Now, from the tools, the community was born out of users sharing content and still forms a real crucial part of it. It might be funny incidents that have happened on site or, you know, unique skills. Whereas for on a budget, it could be our group members' latest DIY projects. UGC is a description of content, but it's also a style of content. More often than not, shot on mobile phones, UGC is sort of social realism in video form. It's a snapshot into real events. So utilizing this sort of content can be a perfect way to create buzz and engagement. But by definition, UGC should come from individuals, not from brands. But well-crafted user-generated style content or curated user-generated style content can be done to great effect. It's immediately familiar, and content that is at home on Facebook over most of the social platforms still to this day. It is not the right way to convey a brand message, but it can certainly see big views and watch time, provoking discussion and engagement. It's a great way to launch a brand, but it's not an opportunity to sell. Next up, product hero videos. So we're moving on to the content style to really show off your brand. Product hero videos are a way to directly talk to the audience, the way to sell. But the important factor to remember when looking at this is the stats. I mentioned earlier, obviously, about watch time, about users watching on mobile, and about the reality that most are watching without sound. So all of this means there needs to be real value to product hero videos, and they need to be optimized for the platform. Now, this could be one or two things, but ideally it should be both. It needs to look amazing, be it a product being used in an eye-catching way or an interesting setting. And additionally, show off the application of the product. Give the user a real-world example as to why they need this product. Is it individual features that you can shout about, or is it a way to make their lives easier? Keep it sharp and keep it snappy, but remember that it still needs to be social content. It's a great opportunity to get across your brand message, but you've a narrow window to do that in, to stop people scrolling on, and a lot of competition. So make sure you are engaging the audience as quickly and as swiftly as you can. Next up, mini docs. So social media has grown obviously out of individuals sharing stories, sharing moments in their lives, and at a time when we've gone without most of those connections, social has seen a boom, and mini docs really exemplify why that is. They are a peek into individual lives, moving stories, heartwarming moments. You will undoubtedly have been seen mini docs shared to you by friends or family, and they're often fantastic little breaks from sometimes very negative noise on social media. They're also the perfect way to show off your community. Now, I want to highlight the two examples I've put up here. So one of them is the dodo. Now, if you don't follow the dodo, I suggest you do, and prepare to spend an hour trying not to cry about some bloke who's adopted a camel. It sounds ridiculous, but it is perfect social content, and their stats reflect it. It's moving, it's engaging, and it's real. Now, the other video is a piece of content that I'm really proud of that we've done on a budget. So this is a story of a young lad called Jack, whose mum put a post out in our DIY on a budget group, and showing off a project he'd done and explaining a little bit about his backstory. So Jack is 12 years old. He's got ADHD and autism, but he just loves upcycling, and his work is far beyond his years. So we contacted his mum and arranged for him to answer some questions for a video. And what the product that came out is incredibly sweet, and it was really well received because it exemplified what on a budget and what DIY on a budget is all about. And it's a great example that inspiring stories, there's so many inspiring stories within social communities. So mini docs are about being honest, and they're a great way for brands to engage with something far bigger than themselves. Finally, I want to talk about sketches. So in the same way mini docs are a moment to highlight an important issue, tug at the heartstrings, sketches are the moment for a bit of light relief. So social communities thrive on niche interests, and because of that, sketches allow for audience members to share relatable moments and scenarios. So from the tools, this has been a massive thing, highlighting common gripes and workplace incidents that all tradespeople can relate to, but moments that you're not going to see on any other platform. It's not for TV, it's not for radio, but it is true social content. So if you can tap into a situation that users can relate to, you've won them over, and it's a great way to build a really loyal and engaged audience. But they are hard to get right, which Matt will no doubt talk about later on. Well done sketches always see great engagement because they're infinitely shareable. And ultimately, that is the ideal for any brand or publisher, is connecting with the audience. So in conclusion, as Facebook video content continues to grow, so do the opportunities. There's a balance, of course, between what a brand wants to say and what an audience wants to hear. So bridging that gap is the art of creating good social content. The audience will more often than not vote with their feet on all their views and their engagement. So it's important to listen to the audience, to know what you want to connect with, and to understand what they are interested in. Then you need to optimize. So think about the fact that most people are watching on the phones and watching without the sound on. Choose the right content type for your objective, and to create something that is at home on Facebook, not for TV, not for YouTube, not for TikTok, but for Facebook. And the end result of that is connection and engagement with the audience. That's going to build organic sentiment with your brand. So take those three things away, and if you've got any questions for me, please do pop them in the box, and I'll be happy to answer them at the Q&A at the end. So thank you very much for your time, and Scott, back to you.
Lovely, thanks George. And now we're going to move on to Matt Butler. Matt is a video producer here at Electric House, and he's responsible for all of the technical, editorial and logistical aspects of a project. He's going to talk you through the process from how to get started with video production through to how we do things here at Electric House. So take it away, Matt.
Brilliant, thanks Scott. So hello everyone, my name is Matthew Butler, and as Scott mentioned, I'm a video producer here at Electric House. So I'm lucky enough to manage a team of very creative, very talented and hardworking people that it's their job day to day to take ideas from an initial idea and bring that through to the wonderful and engaging videos that we have on our platforms. So what I want to run through today, first of all, is the production process. So how do we go from that initial idea, take it through to the filming day where we capture all that content and then get a lovely engaging video at the end of it. Then I want to discuss equipment. How can you get started straight away, and what equipment can you aspire to be using to create really engaging and nice looking content? And then of course, I want to run over a few video styles. So videos that you can get started with straight away, that are easy to start filming. And I'll show you how we would go about filming those and the things you need to prep to make sure you're making the most of them. So the production process, first of all. So there are three key areas in production. The first is pre-production. So that is just a fancy term for saying the planning. So how this starts is you'll come up with an idea. So we have creative meetings where you want to get people that are involved in the project to put their heads together and think through ideas, and come up with ideas. And then you'll pick the best idea, and then you can work from that and go on to the scripting. So once you've got that initial idea, you can start fleshing that out in the script. So thinking about what the characters are going to be, what the dialogue might be, what locations you might have. And then when you've got the script that's really useful for the actors to use on set, you want to go on to the shot list and storyboard. So that's more of a visual aid to work from. So your videographers know what they need to shoot. So you're not filming too much or too little on the filming day, and that you're filming the shots as you envisage them in the pre-production stage. Then of course, you want people to be in front of the camera. So you need your actors. You'll want presenters potentially if it's a presenter-led video. So you'll want to organize them and make sure they're available on the day. Locations, of course, if you've got a script with several different locations, you'll want to make sure that that's actually achievable and viable with what you have access to at your fingertips, rather than sort of things that are completely unachievable, like filming in Hollywood or whatever it might be. Then you'll need props for your shoot. So making sure it's all authentic, making sure those props actually fit with the setting. And then equipment, obviously knowing what equipment you need for the day and making sure you can get your hands on that ready for the filming. So that's the pre-production stage, which is essentially all the planning. And once you've done all the planning, you go on to the production. So again, that's another fancy term for saying filming. So filming, when you're filming your scripts and your storyboard, there are sort of key areas that you need to think about. So you need a director, somebody that can direct the talent on screen and make sure you're getting the best performance and making sure they're happy with the shots that you're getting on the day. You'll need actors, the people in front of the camera, so making sure they are delivering the lines and giving the best performance possible. And then obviously down to the filming crew to make sure they're getting the right script, the right shots that you'd pre-planned in your shot list and storyboard, making sure they're looking nice, they're lit well, the sound is good, and there's nothing in the background that, you know, throws the video completely off kilter. So once you've got all your footage and all the raw media that you need, and you've done the filming day, it's obviously a case of taking that footage and then editing it. So post-production, again, that's a fancy term for saying editing. And what we do in the edit, we might have an hour's worth of footage from the actual filming day, and we want to cut that down into the 1 to 2 to 3 minute video that keeps it really engaging and really sort of creates a great video at the end of it that you pre-planned in the pre-production stage. So a video that, as you saw it when you had that initial ideas creative meeting at the start. Now, once you've cut together a sort of rough cut, you'll want to add layers of motion graphics, soundtrack on there, and color grading to really make the video look nice and feel nice. And as George mentioned earlier, a lot of people now are watching video on their on their mobile phones, and they might not be able to watch it with sound. So subtitling is really key to make sure that people that are watching can understand it and you know, follow the video even if they can't hear it, basically. And then of course, exporting in the right size for the specific platform that you're looking to put the video out on. So when I say that, it's making sure the video is the right size for the platform. So Facebook newsfeed, for example, preferences square videos. Instagram stories might preference a portrait video. And then YouTube, for example, might want a landscape, nice sort of widescreen cinematic size video. So that's really key to know in the pre-production stage what platform you're going to put the video on. So throughout the production and post-production, you can make sure the video is the right size at the end. Okay, so I can hear you saying to me, yeah, but Matt, that's all well and good, but we don't have all the amazing equipment that you guys have at Electric House. But that shouldn't stop you. So everyone I know has access to a mobile phone. Even my nan, bless her, she has a mobile phone that can film video on it. She might not know how to use it, but most people can use the video function on their mobile phones. Now, there's a few things you can do to improve how that looks. So you can get lights. So a ring light here in this picture is a really great way of putting light on a person that's in front of the camera. But getting lights like this, super cheap, like you can get good lighting for less than £100, and it'll really up your game, even if you're using your mobile. And I also recommend, as you can see here, using a tripod. So tripods will make sure your shots are nice and steady. They're not sort of handheld or amateurish looking, and it really will raise your game and make sure you've got nice, smooth looking shots. The next thing to think about when you're filming on a phone is sound. So sound is really important. And what you'll see here is what we call a lapel microphone. And you'll see lots of news presenters on TV wearing this. Basically, it's a microphone that clips to the collar of the presenter or actor, and it picks up the sound just from around them. So it doesn't pick up loads of background noise, like dogs barking in the background or alarms going off or planes going overhead. It will just pick up the sound from just around the microphone, which means you cut out a lot of the background noise and makes it a lot crisper. Now, as you can see here, you can plug straight into a mobile phone. You'll want to make sure the microphone that you buy is actually compatible with the phone you use. So check out reviews before you actually buy it and make sure it is compatible. But it's better than using just the inbuilt microphone on your phone, because that, again, will pick up sound from all around. And if you just want the sound from your actor, the lapel microphone is the way to go. If you want to take a step up from using your mobile phone, then I can highly recommend getting something like a DSLR with high definition video capabilities. The footage from those will be a lot crisper. They'll just look nicer. You've got the ability to have interchangeable lenses, so you can change from like a wide angle lens to a telephoto lens, which means you can zoom in really far. You can get macro lenses to get really close up and nice crisp shots of things really close up as well. So yeah, DSLRs cost around £300 upwards for a decent DSLR that will do a good job and raise the game up from your mobile phone. Then, of course, you'll want to think about the sound again. So what I've got here is what's called a wireless lapel microphone. So it's very much the same as the one I showed you before. The difference is you're not restricted by a cable length that's connected to your camera, because what you have is a transmitter box, which is on the left, that has the microphone attached to it, and that sits in the presenter or the actor's pocket, and the clip microphone still clips to the collar, and that sound is then transmitted over to the receiver, which is put on the camera, and the sound goes straight into the camera and is recorded on the memory card in the camera. So that means you're not restricted. The presenter or the actor could be up to 30 meters away, but you're still getting really crisp, lovely sound. Then if you want to raise the game even further, you're looking at getting sort of broadcast camera equipment. Now, when you get into this stage, you might want to question, is it worth going to the expense of buying all this equipment? Because a lot of this kit is, you know, thousands of pounds upwards. So it might be worth just getting a video production agency to actually sort of do a professional job and really raise the game on your videos. Okay, so once you've filmed it, you'll want some editing gear. Now, I've given a quick overview here of different edit software you can use. On the left-hand side, with HitFilm, Shotcut, and OpenShot Video Editor, these are free resources that you can find online and work with both Mac and PC-based computers. So they're nice, easy, free editing software that you can start using right away today. And on the right-hand side is the more sort of professional edit suites that we use. So we've got Adobe Premiere, which is a really great editing software. You've got After Effects, which is more of a motion graphics software, and it's what our team use. And then you've got Final Cut Pro, which is largely a Mac-based editing software. But they have more functionality, but there is definitely a steeper learning curve. So in my opinion, if you're just getting started, try out these ones on the left. You can use them for free, and it's a good way to really sort of build up your knowledge of editing and get started cutting all that footage down into the engaging video that you want. Okay, so now I want to go into a few different video styles that you can get started on right away. First of all, I want to talk about interview-based filming. And the reason I want to start with this is because it's super adaptable. So with interview-based filming, you could be filming case studies of clients that have used your service or product. You could be filming testimonials from them. You could film recruitment videos. You can have a charity drive and talk about anything that needs to tell a story. So as George mentioned earlier, we do a lot of mini docs where people have got an interesting story to tell. The reason these sort of films are really interesting and easy to make is because you have two specific key elements that you need to make them. First of all, it's the interview itself. So getting that person in front of the camera to tell their story. And then what I like to call the B-roll. So that's interesting footage that complements the interview, that goes over the top of the interview narrative. So you can still hear what's being said, but you're getting really lovely shots over the top. And B-roll is really important to help you cut a video down. So if you have an interview, let's say and you've got an hour's worth of footage, if you want to cut that video down into a 2-minute video, you'll need B-roll to hide the cuts that you make in the interview. So you're just using the best bits of the interview, but also to complement what's being said in the video and keep it engaging. So I'll show you a little clip now of a video that basically is an interview-based video, so you can see what I mean, if it will like to load. So bear with me, technology. Here we go. So this is a little video we shot with a competition winner. So you'll see here, you've got the interview footage, and now you've got shots of B-roll. So that B-roll is complementary footage that is going over what she's saying. So you'll see by the subtitles, what's on screen is actually sort of working and complementing what's being said in the interview. And then, so you've got two elements. You've got the interview, which you'll see here, and then you've got the B-roll that goes over the top. So how do you conduct an interview? So the first thing is to prepare a list of questions, and you want to steer the interview with your questions. So you want a list of maybe 10 to 15 questions to ask, and you want them to avoid having yes, no answers. So you want questions that the interviewee can expand upon. So if you're doing a case study video, for example, you might want to ask the person in front of the camera, so what were the problems and issues you were having before you used our service and product? Then you might want to ask, okay, what was the experience like using our service or product? And then going on to, how did the service and product help you solve those problems that you initially had, and how is it making your life much better now? So having those key questions laid out. Then I get asked a lot, well, should the interviewee, the person that you're asking the questions to, should they script their answers? And my opinion is no, they shouldn't, because you get a far more natural response if they just answer and treat it more as a conversation. If they've scripted their answers, written it down, loads of writing, then they'll try and refer back to that. They'll become really wooden and stiff, and they'll trip over their words. They won't be sure what they're saying. So it's really much better just to get a natural conversation and response from them. And then the key thing for the interviewer is to really listen to what the interviewee is actually saying, so they can ask questions and delve a little bit deeper into what they're saying. So you'll see from this picture, the interviewer is sat to the left-hand side of the camera, and the interviewee is talking directly to them rather than facing the camera lens, facing down the barrel of the camera lens. And we do that on purpose. It's a lot more, it's a lot less daunting. Staring down the lens is really quite scary. So talking to the interviewer gives a much more natural conversation. And that helps you delve deeper into the emotions. If you can just have a normal conversation, it really helps to dig deeper into those emotions and get the best performance, because a really emotive piece will capture your audience and get your viewers sticking around. As I said, with the B-roll, you want footage that complements what's being talked about. So this video that I'll show in a short minute, was taken from a clip that we made. So it was a video where we had an ex-Royal Marine, and he was talking about what he feels about Remembrance Day. And so we went to the National Arboretum and got some really lovely sort of shots of the memorials there and the poppy reefs and everything there. So it really complemented what he was talking about with regards to Remembrance Day. Ideally, you want to film this footage after you've done the interview, so you know what you've taken from the interview, you know what's been said in the interview, and you're taking those best bits and then putting footage over the top that correlates to what was said in the interview. And then with your B-roll, you have a license to be creative. You can be a bit more arty with it. You know, you can get those really nice sort of shots, close-up shots, pull focus shots where you're focusing on one thing in the background and then pulling to things in the foreground. You can use really nice sort of gimbals, which I'll show you now. So this footage here is one of our videographers basically using a gimbal device. Hopefully when it loads, we'll show you that. But what I've got here is the shot on the left-hand side, which will be of the memorial, the footage that the videographer has actually shot, and then the videographer actually taking that shot with a gimbal device and getting that really smooth, plush looking shot. So you can be really creative with that. Okay. So I want to move on to sketch filming. So George mentioned earlier, we do a lot of sketches on our platforms as they're really engaging. What you'll want for those is a script, storyboard, locations, actors, and props that fit what you want to get through with that video. So scripting, let's start with that. Scripting, this is really a case of fleshing out your ideas. So you'll have your initial idea to begin with, where you have a start, middle, and an end. And it's really thinking about what's going to be involved in that video and really fleshing out those ideas. So you thinking about the characters. What are they like? Is it a young person, an older person? Are they male, female? Digging into their personality. So are they shy? Are they confident? Are they super strong? Whatever it might be. And obviously the script is really important in terms of the dialogue. So the actors work from a script and they remember their lines, they learn their lines from the script. So having that script laid out. And a rule of thumb really is if you have an A4 page and you're using size 12 font, an A4 page is about a minute's worth of video. Now that is a rule of thumb because obviously dialogue can be spoken a lot faster or slower, so it really depends, but it's just a rule of thumb to work from. As well as dialogue, you want to think about actions in your script. So what's actually taking place on camera, so you can really use that when you are filming. So you want to think about the actions that are taking place when there is no dialogue. So that's just something to think about. A real thing that a lot of people that are new to filming do is try and put way too much dialogue in your script when visual actions will actually tell the story as well. So if somebody's really nervous, you might see that bead of sweat, you get a close-up of that bead of sweat without them actually having to say anything. So think about actions as well. And then lastly, obviously script, you need to have locations in there. So one scene might have several different locations. So that's really key in there as well. You might be filming in the kitchen, in the garden, or on a construction site, whatever it might be. Okay, so the next thing to think about is a storyboard or some way of knowing what shots you need to get. So script is really useful for lines and it's great for actors, but storyboards are really useful for your videographers. So they know exactly what shots you need to get. Now, a lot of people worry about doing storyboards because they worry, you know, I'm not brilliant at drawing. And you don't have to be, but this is the sort of thing, if you went to an agency like ours, that you can expect to have with your videos. Some really nice looking drawings that will show you how that end video is going to look. So it doesn't matter if you're amazing at drawing. The key thing is we know what's going to be in that shot. So if you look on the left-hand side, there is the long shot, medium shot, close up. So knowing what's going to be shot in that frame, whether it's going to be a shot of a large crowd, an establishing shot, or if it's going to be a close-up of somebody, that's talking. So it's just knowing those shots, and you can almost use it as a checklist on the day when you're filming to say, right, yeah, perfect, we've got that shot in the can. So they're really useful for that respect. If you don't like drawing at all, you can just use a shot list, which is like a numbered list that is just listing out what you need to shoot for that particular shot. So it might be, as I say, like a close-up of somebody talking. It might be a crowd, a long shot of people in a crowd. So yeah, that's something that's just really useful to have on the filming day to know you've got the right footage that you need. Here I've got a side-by-side video. So this will show you on the left-hand side, this is a video we did in a kind of Grand Theft Auto style. On the left-hand side is the video we shot, and on the right-hand side, you can see the storyboard clips that correlate to those shots. And you'll see that they match up quite nicely in this. And as I say, it's just a really nice visual aid that we use for clients so they can see what the video is going to look like before we actually film. And it's useful for the videographer on the day to know what to film. So I want to go through some quick fire tips with actors now. If you're just starting out, you really want to sort of use the people around you. Don't worry about reaching out to like trying to get Leonardo DiCaprio on your video because it's just not going to happen. Use the people around you to begin with. So clients, if you're doing testimonial videos, you might want to get your clients in front of the camera. Or if you're doing sketches, you might just want to gather people in your team to play the different roles in the video and get in front of camera. There's always somebody that loves being in front of the camera. So grab them and get them to be part of your video. Then if you get a little bit more budget and you want to get more professional actors involved, what you'll want to do is reach out to actors, agencies and things like that. But to do that, you'll want a character breakdown. So before you approach anybody like the agencies, you really want to have the character breakdown, which tells them what you're looking for. So is it somebody that's young or old? Is it somebody that looks like a bouncer, looks like a construction worker? Do they have to be aggressive, shy? Whatever it might be, you want to think about the personality of that character and also talk with the character breakdown, what actually happens to that character through the script. And when you've got your character breakdown, just a few paragraphs about that character, you can then approach actor sites and agencies to try and find the right actors to play those characters for you. So actor sites, there's places like mandy.com, Backstage, Spotlight, that you can go to and reach out to find those actors. And then the key thing you really want before filming is to view self-tapes. So give those agencies maybe a paragraph or two of your script and see how the actors that they give to you perform that script out. It's really important that you view the self-tapes because it'll give you a feel for if that person is the right fit for the characters you want in your video, and if they perform it how you want them to perform it. Next thing to think about is locations. What do you have access to? Really important, actually, when you're starting out, that you think about locations first, because you might have access to, one of your friends might own a pub, for example, or they might own a gym, or one of your relatives might have a cafe that you can have access to out of hours. And it's really important that you use the locations you have access to right now to get you started. And you might even think about that when you're coming up with the idea for the video. Can you think, oh, well, what would work well in that location, rather than just using your office location? Make it interesting, and use locations that you have access to right now. And don't be afraid to reach out. What I find is that when we reach out to people that aren't in the filming world, they find it super glamorous and interesting if they have a film crew in for the day, and they're usually super keen for it to happen because it's a bit of a talking point for them. Today we had a film crew in filming this video. Yeah, it's just a bit of a break from the norm, from their day to day, basically. If you're getting more professional, you want to sort of get a street scene, for example, in the middle of London or a big city centre, you might want to work, you will need filming permits, and you might have to pay for those. So for bigger budget stuff, you might need to get filming permits to access certain backstage areas or whatever it might be. Our team's used to that. So it's one of those things that when you're pushing the boundaries a little bit more with locations, it's something you do have to think about. So in conclusion, really, I want you to start with what you have now, whether that's just using your mobile phone, whether that's using your friends and family to act in your videos, whether that's locations you have access to right away. But then try and continuously improve. So test and track your videos and continuously improve. Maybe move up to that DSLR that's got better quality footage. Buy those microphones that will, allow you to more capability, and maybe look at the editing software that costs a little bit more. But get used to stuff you have access to right away and start making videos right away. Thank you very much. I hope that's useful. And as always, I'm happy to answer questions at the end as well. So thanks, guys. Over to you, Scott.
Thanks, Matt. We are starting to get questions in as well. So if anyone else has any, please do get them in, and we'll come to them after Joe has finished his section. So Joe, to give him a little bit of an introduction, is a graphic designer by trade. But with the growth that we've experienced as a business over the last few months, he's been invaluable as a set designer, photographer, and I think even as an artistic director at times, Joe, if that's, I think that's right, I'm saying. He'll be taking you through all things design, so you can start to think about making your videos even prettier. So take it away, Joe.
Thank you, Scott, for that lovely introduction. Yes, I have done a little bit of art direction, so thank you for mentioning that. So yeah, like Scott says, I'm Joe Taylor, and I'm one of the graphic designers at Electric House. My main area of expertise is within content creation for our social media management clients. This happened yesterday. There we go. So today I'm going to talk to you about things to consider in the way of design when it goes into your video production. So my key topics are going to be branding, set design, promotion, and moving image. So firstly, let's talk about branding. Is it important? The obvious answer is yes. It's about making your videos easily and instantly recognizable to your viewers. Do you need this straight away? My answer to this is actually no. I wouldn't want you to start spending all your money on branding when you can definitely start pushing great video content first and then build your visual identity around that. So what even is a visual identity? For video, there's three main areas that I would like you to concentrate on, and that is your brand logo, using a color palette, and having a font style. So the font style is just the text that you put into your videos. Just please don't use Comic Sans. So let's go a bit deeper into visual identity. If you take a look at the image on the left, it's a screenshot from a video. So you might have titles or an intro to your video. Does this need to be designed? Probably. Here we've got an example of a series. So we've actually created a logo using our brand fonts and even got little icons in there. And then in the top corner, you can see there is a tab, or what some people like to call a watermark. And that goes in all our videos with our little logo on. And it just tells the viewer throughout that they are watching a piece of On the Tools video. And like I said earlier, fonts or text in your video. So we've got subtitles here. It's really important that they're using the right fonts that you use within your brand, but also it needs to be legible. So if your brand font is not legible in this situation, do you have a secondary font that you use instead? So other areas that you would consider your visual identity on your profile would be your profile pictures. So for a company, this usually is your company logo, but I would make sure that you check that it's quite simple, usually just one or two colors, because your profile pictures are usually very small. Like our Ministry of Science, you wouldn't want it to get lost in the detail. And then do you design your thumbnails? So thumbnails are the image that you see either at the start of the video or on your Instagram grid or on YouTube when you're searching for videos. These need to be designed. They need to be branded. They need to entice your viewer in. And for example, here, this is a piece of episodic content, the drunken brainwave. So when this pops up and viewers see it, they know that what episode they're on and they're engaged and they want to continue to watch that episode. And another great way of showing your brand off is in your cover image. So whenever anyone visits your page, one of your pages, this is the first thing they see. It should be branded. This is where you show off. I forgot to say as well in video, end cards are super important. So at the end of your video, we usually have a logo. It pops up with bold yellow on the tool's colors. And that just reinforces that you have watched an On the Tools video. So next, I wanted to talk about set design. Much like the storyboards that Matt talked about, this is a planning process that should go into your videos, especially when there is a set involved. It just makes sure that you have planned things that need to be made, they need to be designed, they need to be built in order for you to produce that video at a high standard. It also gives you the opportunity to get sign-off from a client or internally if that's what you need. I don't want you to get too worried about this. Like storyboards, it can be sketches, just photo montages, just grab whatever you need and whatever your capability is. It's just giving you that prep to make sure that your video is top-notch at the end of the day. So I'll go on to talk about promotion of your video. So this is great for drawing up engagement and excitement around your content. And it's particularly useful for things like lives and series where the content might not always exist beforehand, because you can create this as a graphic or a still image to go on your stories or as a square post on your feed. And like I say, it advertises your video when you don't always have the content beforehand to show filmed production. Other ideas that you could use to advertise your videos as well would be using your cover again. We use it sometimes to advertise our vlog, and it's something that's reoccurring, so it's something that can stay on our pages for quite a while, and people know Monday to Friday, or in the past it was Monday to Friday, you could watch our vlog. And a final way that I've chose to talk about promotion would be in your email signature. It's a bit of a different way, but you can add a clickable link at the bottom of your email that sends people directly to your content. Finally, I just wanted to talk about some alternatives to filmed production. So if you don't have the confidence to be filming on a phone, or you don't have the equipment, there's other options that can get you that engagement that video content gets you on social media. So an example of this would be a GIF. So we all know that GIFs give great engagement and they have great shareability. And for instance here, this is a stop motion. And a stop motion is just a series of photos that are stitched together to make a moving image. My next example is a cinematograph. And a cinematograph is a mix of video and moving images. I mainly just put it on because I think they look super cool. But whenever I see one of these on my feed, it instantly makes me stop because there's something that looks not quite right. And it's the fact that it mostly looks still, but the video is actually moving. So I just wanted to pop that in because I think they're really cool. And finally, animation. So I'm not talking about Pixar here. I'm just talking about a mix of moving image and graphics or text. I purposely put a really simple animation here because again, it's something that's moving and it will make the viewer stop and look at your content. So in conclusion, everywhere your brand is seen, I want you to ensure that you have a design consideration. And thank you, and I'll pass you back to Scott.
Lovely, thanks, Joe. Just one more time, it's the last time I'm going to say it, I promise. If you have any questions for any of the members of the panel, now is the time to get them into the Q&A box at the bottom. Let's get started with that. We've got just under 10 minutes left to get some of those questions answered. And let's start with a question for Matt. Matt, there's a question here from Sarah, and she says, are there any tools that can create automatic subtitles, or should you take the time to type them out?
Yeah, thank you, Scott. So really good question, Sarah. Obviously, if you've done a really long interview and you've got loads of subtitling to do, it can be quite off-putting to think you've got to type it all out yourself. There are various tools you can use. There is something called Scriptix and also rev.com, and I can try and type that in the answer for you, but Scriptix and rev.com, you can send your video to them and they will transcribe it for you and send you back basically a Word document that has all the subtitles all written out for you. But you know, a large part of it, what we do is we do actually go through the video ourselves and subtitle it ourselves, more for an accuracy point of view. So if you're really keen to make sure that those subtitles are really accurate, I would recommend doing it yourself. If you just haven't got the time, then yeah, go and look at sort of rev.com. I think you do have to pay a little bit for it, but it's a quicker way of getting those subtitles written out for you. So I hope that's answered your question and is a little bit useful for you.
Just a little addition on that as well. Facebook actually on their publishing in Creator Studio, they offer a automatic captioning on videos, but we have tested it and have found it's quite low accuracy, and actually you're more likely to see kind of negative performance of a video because the really low accuracy captioning can be quite off-putting actually. So you're probably better to go no captioning, or exactly as Matt suggested, invest the time into it to make it really kind of sound off ready. So yeah.
Lovely, thanks both. Next question is anonymous, and this one's for Joe. Between GIFs, cinemagraphs, and animation, which one do you think is more up to date and or more visually appealing, Joe?
I think I don't know about up to date because cinemagraphs may be a little bit old. GIFs have been around; they've been knocking around for ages, but I feel like they never really go away. And they are something they're not usually high production value, but they have that visual appeal because they're not high production value, if that makes sense. And animation, I'd say, on a whole, is probably the most visually appealing, but mainly because you can draw that out and make it more like content that is, say, a minute long, which is more favoritized with things like Facebook. I don't know if George, you might have some views on what performs better.
Yeah, it really depends on the content itself, but no, I think Joe, you make a good point that a really well crafted animation, I think just looks so bold and striking that I think performance wise, as long as the creative's done correctly, you'll see the rewards on that. So yeah, definitely, I do like a good animation.
Lovely. Next question is for you, George. This is from Vladimir. How do you deal with nasty comments? Do you engage at all with these type of comments?
Yeah, I think it really depends on what the comments are and also what they're about in terms of the content. Are they if you've spent the time crafting a sketch and somebody's criticizing the quality of what you've done, then you probably don't want to engage too much because it's a matter of opinion, and often social media trolls, you're never going to win. However, if it's a constructive compliment, if it's about maybe questioning, if take for on the tools, for instance, this wouldn't happen on site, or that person's not an electrician, or whatever it is, then yeah, you might want to engage. I think you've got to make the call really with social, particularly with Facebook, as to whether or not you are prepared to kind of get into a conversation with the individual. Or sometimes another option as well is, if you're seeing a few comments about something, for instance, a common example might be around people questioning safety within a video. At the moment, obviously, COVID's really, kind of still pressing, and people are concerned about whether or not precautions have been taken during filming. So sometimes it's worth, if you if you're seeing a few comments saying this doesn't look very distant, but for instance, something along those lines, you know, you could put on a comment to say, you know, all precautions were taken during the filming of this, you know, rather than engaging with individuals. I think sometimes, particularly with Facebook, you know, you do have to bear in mind that often people aren't there for constructive debate. So sometimes the best answer is to say nothing, I think.
Yeah, it's a really good point, that, George. And equally, a lot of the content that people are still seeing was filmed before the pandemic.
Yeah.
But obviously people just see it as, oh, everybody's breaking guidelines. So sometimes it's, and you see it with a lot of TV. I've noticed that, you know, this was filmed pre-COVID and those sorts of things. So there are some things you can get ahead of without having to engage in the comments, I suppose. Next question. I feel like we've touched on this, Matt, but maybe you could expand a little bit. A question from Olivia here. What's the best way to source actors and locations for videos? I just wondered, you know, we have touched on it, but whether you could sort of expand on that a little bit.
Yeah, no problem. So as I mentioned earlier, if you're sort of, your friends and family aren't willing to help or be in the video, or if you just want better actors in your videos, the first place to go is to look on the actor sort of directories. And as I kind of touched on it earlier, as you said, so you've got places like mandy.com, you've got Backstage, you've got Spotlight, but also, you know, so those sites are sort of directories. So they have hundreds of actors on there, all different types of people, whether it's old, young, whatever it might be. But also you can go to actors agencies, as I mentioned before. So these are people that have a roster of actors on their books, and they'll take your sort of brief, your character breakdowns, as I mentioned earlier, and they'll say, right, we've got people that really fit this criteria. So if you do a quick Google in your area, you'll probably find actor agencies, and also location agencies. Works in exactly the same way. We're fortunate enough here to have our own in-house sort of casting department, which is very much our own sort of agency in-house, I suppose. So you're more than welcome to come to us if we can help you out as well. But yeah, that would be the first sort of place I go to. There are also Facebook groups where you've got actor Facebook groups, but I tend to steer clear of those because some of the actors on those, you know, are more hobbyists and aren't brilliant actors. You probably definitely need to vet them if you're going into Facebook groups like that. So yeah, if it were me, I would go straight to those agencies or actor directories to get the right people involved for your video.
Lovely. Thanks, Matt. Conscious of time, we've only got a minute left, but we do have a question. Oh,
there was a question in the chat. I know.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Thanks, Joe. So it's from Theon. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Just a final question before we round up. Do you have any tips for idea generation for sketches, for example? And maybe this could come, I mean, from any of you really, but maybe George, we'll start with you.
Yeah. So, and I'm sure Matt and Joe have got different examples as well. But from a social side, I think really utilizing your social, whether or not it's your own social pages or whatever they are, but also others as well. You know, it depends what your subject matter is. So, for instance, as well, something that we do quite a lot. We've got private groups for individual tradespeople. We've got electricians group, a UK group for tradespeople, a younger 1625 group aimed at apprentices. And often we will put out questions on certain things into those groups depending on what, you know, we're after. So say, for instance, we want to do a sketch on, you know, kind of common problems for electricians. Makes sense to put out a question to say, you know, what's the best thing about your job? What's the worst thing about your job? What would you change if you could, into those groups? So that's a really good way as well. You know, utilizing your own audience, or like I say, utilize other people's. Twitter is a fantastic source of info. You know, if you can piggyback off other posts, or if you've got your own channels, you can post on there to ask questions and get info. I think that's a really good thing. And then talk to the people involved in it as well, I think is a big thing. And I'm sure that's something maybe Matt could, you know, probably talk about from the production side as well a little bit more.
I would love to go over to Matt, but I'm very aware that we're running out of time, and I don't want to overstay our welcome, as it were, with everyone on the webinar. But if you do have any more questions, obviously feel free to get in touch with us. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining the webinar. I hope you found it interesting and useful. As I say, if you've got further questions or we can support you in any other way, please get in touch. My email address is on the current slide. And if I can't answer your question, I can. We've certainly got the experts here who can. And if you want to share or you haven't managed to catch all of the webinar, we will be putting a recorded version on the Electric House website, which you can find at electrichouse.co.uk. So thank you very much again for attending. Have a lovely day. Thank you to our panel, and we'll see you all later. Thank you, guys.